Alright, hello and welcome. This is the Siberian here, and we are in a bit of a different video. I'm going to be playing just a fun, casual Russian campaign in the background in Empire Total War. But what I want to discuss today, this will actually be like a 3-part video. Today's part is part 1 of the top 10 things I want in an Empire 2 Total War game. So I'll be doing the first 5 in part 1, the second 5 in part 2, and then any comments or other ideas that I come across as a result of these videos, as well as like other small changes that I didn't get to in the top 10, I'll be discussing in our last video. So yeah, I'll be playing in this is my mod Empire Total War called Empire Extended. But yeah, so the top 10 things I want in Empire 2 Total War. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to start with a big one that is probably familiar to many grand strategy players, in that I think Empire 2 Total War would benefit greatly from a war score system. Now, what do I mean by that? A war score system would be familiar to you if you've played games like Crusader Kings, or really any of the Paradox grand strategy games, where as you fight battles, as you capture towns, as time progresses and you've either made progress or not made progress towards your war goal, you earn a war score. And that war score will determine how much territory you can take. Because right now, in the way the Total War engine works, is you capture a town and now it's yours. For good, forever, until somebody else recaptures it. But historically, you had to have a claim. You had to have some sort of right to the territory, or it had to be ceded to you. So there's areas of the world that were never fought. Like no army marched through it and conquered it, and yet in the peace treaty it was ceded over to the other side. And that would work really well in a war system, or war score system. So as, say you're fighting a battle and you win, that adds to your war score. Say you fight another battle and you lose, that subtracts from your war score. And by the end, the difference in the two combatants' war scores, when they're trying to make peace, will determine if a peace is accepted. So if you're at like a war score of 20 and they're at a war score of 5, you can demand, so much worth of territory or concessions from the enemy. I just think this would pull the focus away from just sieges and really push towards, I want to make a climactic battle. And that would be easy to teach the AI to say, hey, seek out battles, because if you win, you get that war score. So I think this would be a really good change. It would also allow a purpose for capturing villages and towns. Say you captured St. Petersburg like this, it would be occupied by my army and I'd have to leave a garrison there. But at the end of the war, if I didn't win by enough, I might not be able to keep it. And that's historically happened a lot. In fact, in the Great Northern War, which is kind of what's going on right now, in this Empire game, Russia took St. Petersburg, and all along this area, Estonia and Livonia, apparently. This was all Swedish owned originally. The Russians took over it, and the Russian Tsar sent the King of Sweden peace treaty saying, hey, we'll give you back everything but St. Petersburg. And of course that was denied, so it didn't happen. But that kind of treaty could be made in a war score system. So that's my number one. Number one change I would like to see, and they're not really ranked on importance. These are just the top 10 things I could think of. Number two would be a new village system. Now this is, I'm going to say something potentially heart-stopping here, so brace yourselves. I actually liked the Thrones of Britannia system in some ways. It reminded me of Empire Total War, but more fleshed out with more freedom. Now I don't like how simplified and toned down each minor settlement was. But for instance, say Moscow is your home territory, but this is an actual town. That's what it's supposed to be in Empire, but it doesn't work out. I never remember these as towns. But say you had 4 or even 5 or 6 or 7, depending on the size of the territory, minor towns attached to a province, that would really fill out the map and give the dense feeling of a full world. Like this is an actual busy I don't know what I'm trying to say. This is a full populated world instead of just a scattered town here and there. Now this might make people upset, but it also plays into some of my other ideas. It doesn't have to be implemented exactly like that, but I'm not a huge fan of every settlement just having a settlement and none of these little upgradables. But if you turn these into actual towns or villages, as I would call them, I think that's a fairly elegant solution. Likewise, so that's number 2, a new village system, and those villages could appear or even disappear as population goes up or down. So that's number 2, new village system. Number 3, the number 3 change I would like to see would be a new resource system. Now there are resources in Empire, but I think that system got much improved by Shogun 2, where in Shogun you have resources like iron, which allow you to build certain types of weapons or troops or whatnot. And you can trade for that, and people, if you have a rare resource, people are more likely to want to trade you for it, and you can get more money for it. That basic economic trade system would work so well in an Empire game. And so I would love to see a revamp of the resource system where resources actually do something, right? So you have timber, you have food, steel, coffee, sugar, spice, whatever, steel. Did I already say? Yeah, I already said that. And those, you actually have a storage, and you can trade them away. You can use them up to create certain units, to upgrade certain things. So like building a large ship would take timber, and you actually have to have a supply of timber. And so you will have certain villages producing certain resources depending on what's around them. And that would allow for dynamic trading, allow for research-rich areas or countries, even that are small, still be able to do a lot of to build like a solid professional army. I don't know. I just think this system would be really cool. Of course, let me know what you guys think of that idea, but that's something I would love to see in addition to money. Because right now, really the only valuable resource for doing anything in the game, in Empire, and really everything but Troy, and I did like Troy's system, The only valuable resource for doing anything is money. And still having a lot of money would let you trade or buy other resources off of players, but I would like to see a revamp of the resource system for an Empire 2 Total War. So that's my third idea of what I would like to see. Nice, getting some good shots off in there. Fourth, I understand why this hasn't been as big of a deal, because you have to do it well. Also, I'm the Russian Republic here. Sorry, that was really random. My fourth thing for Empire 2 Total War would be religion. Make religion have a purpose. Make religious heresies pop up. And you can either be a tolerant society that embraces that, or an intolerant society that quashes that and remains unified. Make, relations between Christians and Muslims be strained, or even between Protestants and Catholics. I mean, and this is something I want to get into later, but some ideas potentially for DLC for an Empire 2 would be a pike and shot era thing for the 30 Years' War. A 30 Years' War DLC for Empire 2 Total War would be amazing. That's the wars between the Protestants and Catholics in the mid-1600s. And yeah, very much a pike and shot feel. And that would be a situation where religion would be incredibly impactful. Along with that, I would love some like medieval 2 type heresies to pop up and be impactful. So it's not just, oh look, there's a thing, like, oh look, I guess I'm Christian, I didn't even realize that. As Empire is right now. Ooh, some good canister. I would love to see a situation where religion plays an impact on your relations, on even some of your culture, and whatnot. So that's a pretty high on my list. So that's my fourth. Revamping religion, making religion actually a factor that you have to pay attention to. And that includes conversion. You can be an aggressive conversion, but have more short-term public order issues or whatnot. There's a lot that could be done with religion. And number 5 for this video, for this first 5 of the top 10, is a change to, oh, I forgot to write it down. What did I call it? Oh, I called it New Army Mechanics. What do I mean by New Army Mechanics? So number 5 is New Army Mechanics. And what I mean by that is a move away from the current general-only recruitment system that's in place in the newer Total War titles. It's not in old Empire that I'm playing here, but a move towards a brand new recruitment system. So what that would look like is, here, I'll pull up this. Recruitment will be only for professional units. Now at the start of the game, you're going to have, and at the start of this period, professional armies are going to be small and expensive. So you'll only be able to afford, well, Russia could probably afford a little bit more, but they're pretty decentralized. So you could only afford a few professional infantry that you're paying their wages, that they're equipped all year round. But when you go to war, you have a levy system. It doesn't have to be called that. Maybe a militia system where you raise the militia or whatever. But say you have a government tab like this. In it, under policies, you can have a boom, raise levies button. When that is selected, in each major town, or even you could have it in each village as well, that could play into the village system. Based on the population, you have certain units spawn. So they'll be mostly militia units. So, you know, most of the lower and middle class will spawn into militia units. And then upper class might, I don't know, be more professional units, more well trained or whatnot. But so that means during war you'll have more upkeep. So right, that'll cost food to upkeep, going back to our resource system, and more money. But it will be cheaper than holding. Am I at war? No, I'm allied. Okay. It'll be cheaper than holding these huge professional armies all over the world, but your whole forces will be decentralized all over the map. You'll be forced to move your forces and consolidate onto a general in order to be effective. Now, it can be a captain that can lead the troops, of course, but generals will be more effective. But yeah, so this raised levies button on your thing, you can use it when you go to war. And when those levies are dismissed, those troops will disappear and the populations will return to your population total of each town. So if you lose a lot of levies during your war, right, it doesn't impact your professional troops, which is good, but it'll affect your economy in that less men will be returning home to work. I think that's a really fairly simple. You could borrow from Paradox once again. The levy system in Crusader Kings is a good example of this working well. I would just love to see it in Total War. In that you'll have a little less control over the composition of your troops, but you have total control over the composition of your professional troops. So yeah, that's my number 5. A new army mechanic, new recruitment mechanic, I guess I could call it. So those are my top 5. To recap, the new war score system for engaging in wars and diplomacy between nations. A new village system where these villages are actually changeable and affect the overall campaign. A new resource system where resources determine what you can and can't recruit, how valuable your trade is, all of that good stuff. Ooh, Portugal. And that village system would even make something like a single province France, although that's not ideal. If these were each, a single province France could have 7 or 8 of those minor city settlements that can be taken and captured individually. But once again, the war score system makes it so if you sack France, then you're going to be able to demand certain things. So I think that's a very elegant solution. Maybe that's just me. But sorry, I got distracted. So war score, village system. Third is the resource system, where they affect more than just, I don't know, basic trade, but you actually have to balance your resources. Fourth is religion. Religion playing the actual impact it has had in history. And fifth is the new army mechanics, making impactful army like recruitment and levy system. On that note, so those are the top 5. I'll get the next top 5 in my part 2 video. Other notables that I would love to see, I'm going to sprinkle these in each. These are small things that I think would influence or add greatly to the game. I would love to see a much better soundtrack than Empire had. And as you can hear, I've just got Mozart playing in the background, and it feels more energetic and period appropriate than I feel the original soundtrack did. Not that the soundtrack was particularly bad. It just didn't capture the creative explosion that happened at this time and around this time very well, I didn't think. So I'd love to see a new soundtrack composed very well. And then also another little notable thing I would love to see is unit sizes. And we'll get more into this in our part 2 when we're talking about the AI. But unit size, I know this is hard, but even if you have one soldier represent 2 soldiers in the game, I would love to see more historical sized forces. 40,000 troops in an army, you know? Even that's on the small side compared to like Napoleon. But I would love to see something like that. That would make me much more immersed in feeling like I'm actually running an expansive country like, say, Russia or Sweden or Spain or France or whatnot. So that's something. Now, so you guys know, and I'm sure most of you know, I'm a modder for Empire. I love Empire. It's still a great game. People hate on it all the time, but it doesn't deserve it. I mean, just watch this. Great things can be achieved even in this, even in Empire as it is. But I would love to see some of these things in Empire 2. I know it's got to be made. It's got to be given justice. And better AI is one thing. But let me know what you guys think would work well, what you think wouldn't work well, what your own ideas are. And if you comment some ideas that I haven't thought of and aren't going to be in these first 2 parts, I will address it in part 3, whether I think it's a good idea or not. And yeah, so that's it for our video today. Once again, like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content, and I will catch you guys on the part 2. Oh no, my Russians are retreating. Alright, well that's all we got for today, folks. I will catch you on the next one.